Ronald Reed was a janitor and a gas station attendant in the US. But at the time of his death, he had over $8 million to his name. Warren Buffett, one of the richest men alive today, did you know that he got 90% of his net worth after he turned 50? Crazy, right? Money is everywhere. It affects all of us, but confuses most of us. And this book, The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, tries to explain just that. This book doesn't tell us which stocks to pick or how to time the market. Instead, the main premise of this book is that doing well with money has very little to do with how smart you are, but a lot to do with how we behave. So with that in mind, here are a few timeless lessons from the book divided into 3 categories. The first one is attitudes and mindset. Tails drive everything, and luck and risk are 2 sides of the same coin. Morgan basically explains that tails are like those rare outlier events which drive most of the outcomes. For example, Amazon. It had launched hundreds of products and most of them failed. Only a handful of them became a success, like Kindle, Prime, but they were such massive hits that they covered up for all the losses which Amazon had endured. The same principle applies to stock market. People talk about the average return in the past few years, but when we look at it closely, there are maybe 10-15 days of trading which have created great results which drive up the average return. So when looked closely at a specific event, it can seem like it's either really good or really bad. But we have to remember that nothing is as good or bad as it seems. Similarly, since nothing has 100% odds of success, risk is just what happens when we're on the unfortunate side. So what we can do is stay consistent, stay long term, and be humble enough to know that not everything is in our control and not be quick enough to judge others. The next one is being reasonable over being rational. If we're confused over buying or renting a house, we take out a spreadsheet and try to do all the calculations. The most rational decision is going to be to rent a house. But what this doesn't take into account is the kind of emotional stability, safety, and the sense of belonging that one gets when they own their own house. And Morgan explains just that people are not spreadsheets. There is a lot of emotions, and finances are very personal. So basically what he says is that it's okay to take decisions which are not completely rational or which you cannot completely defend to another person, as long as they're reasonable. And it's okay to make financial decisions that help us sleep better at night. And building on that, the next one is no one is crazy. People behave in very different ways which may not always seem very logical to us. But it's okay that they're making those decisions for themselves, because everyone comes from a place of experiences that they have endured that kind of shaped the way they look at things. So for example, someone who was born during the time of recession, they would want to save up a lot of money and they would not be inclined to take a lot of debt. Similarly, someone who grew up in a place where there were financial difficulties would maybe want to spend a lot of money when they can afford to. The next one is nothing is free. Everything has a price. For example, if we want to go to an amusement park, there are 2 kinds of costs that we pay. The first one, which is very visible and tangible, like the entry fees or paying for certain rides. The second one is something that is not very visible in the first go, but is also a cost that we're paying, like standing in long lines. So Morgan basically explains that everything in life has a price. And the key to life is to basically just identify what the price is and be willing to pay it. We already go with the mindset that, okay, I'm going to invest in the stock market and the price for this is going to be uncertainty and I'm going to be okay with it. Then even when the situation does happen, we're not blindsided by it. The second category is growing money. In this, there are only 2 points. The first one is compounding. I know you've heard this term a lot, but let's break it down. Compounding is what happens when the money that we put in somewhere earns money, and this money earns money again, and the cycle keeps continuing. And even though this is not very exciting, it's actually a finance superpower. If you take the example of Warren Buffett, 97% of his net worth was accumulated after he turned 65. And apart from being an amazing investor, his other secret was compounding, because he started investing at the age of 10 and stayed consistent throughout his entire life. The next point is saving. Basically, there are only a few factors at play when it comes to money. One is how much we're earning, how much are our expenses, and how much are we saving. And this saving, how much are the investment returns that we're going to get on it. And since our income and investment return is not something that we can control much, savings is the main aspect that we have to look into. Because in the end, saving can buy one important thing, which is freedom. Freedom to do what we want, when we want, how we want. And Morgan says that saving is the gap between our income and ego. Not expenses, but our ego. Because if we don't keep upgrading our lifestyle or to show off more to people, we're naturally going to save a lot more. Building on this, he talks about margin of safety. Margin of safety is basically having room for error. Because life throws so many curveballs at us, the only thing we can be sure of is the unpredictability and the surprising nature of life. For example, our goals, dreams, and lifestyle that we have at 20s would be very different compared to 40s. One-off events or black swan events like COVID, personal emergencies, inflation spikes, war can happen and derail the most perfect plans. So now that we have money, how do we protect it? So one of the things Morgan mentions in the book is knowing our enough. Most of us don't have any financial goal post in mind. The more we want to achieve in life, the further the financial goalpost keeps moving because of comparison and social capitalism. But the problem with this is that now the ceiling becomes so high that virtually nobody can hit it. At first, you want to be 1,000 richest people in the world, then it becomes top 100, then top 10, then top 1, and then you want to surpass yourself every year. Morgan explains that reputation, freedom and independence are invaluable. Family and friends, being loved by those we want to be loved by, and happiness are all invaluable. And the best shot at keeping these things is knowing when to stop taking risks and knowing when you have enough. And the last one is defining your game. One of the worst money mistakes that we can do is follow someone who's playing a completely different money game from us. For example, a long-term investor is playing a game which has different rules compared to a short-term investor or a trader who wants to get quick results. Following each other's and trying to copy each other's rules is what results in ultimate chaos and bubbles that have been formed. It's important to run our own race. So that's it. These are some of the lessons that I took away from this book. Honestly, it changed the way I look at money and it brought a lot more clarity to me about how money works. So let me know which one was your favorite, or if there are any other lessons that you picked up from this book which I've missed out on. I would love to know all about them. See you soon in the next video. Until then, bye-bye.